Welcome back to The Juggle is Real. I'm Andryanna, and I'm sitting down here to talk about something that, I mean, on the surface, it feels maybe like we're just going through another internet debate, and it feels hot right now. We're sort of on the heels of some interviews, and really, I almost kind of just dismissed it and kept scrolling. But then the more I sat with it, the more I realized that it's really touching on something that is so much deeper than just a sound bite that's kind of gone out of control. And you may have seen it. It's this conversation around Emma Grede and what's being called the 3 hour mom. And depending on what corner of the internet you're in, you probably had a reaction. Maybe you agreed with what she was saying. Maybe you felt uncomfortable. Maybe you were like, I don't even know what to think about this. And if you haven't seen it, or you don't really care about the person or the headline or the debate, I think this conversation still matters, because what it's really about is how we define motherhood, how we define success, and what we believe this word balance is supposed to look like, and also how quickly we judge other people we don't even know, the people who we might know. We judge each other and we judge ourselves based on these ideas. So today I want to talk about, I'm going to share what actually happened if you hadn't seen it really quickly. I want to talk about why it's hit such a nerve. And I also want to look at that deeper dynamic underneath it and how to think about your own life and your own choices without getting pulled into all of this noise. Because I think we know that this isn't really about one woman. It's really about how all of us are navigating this. So before I share my take, let's start with what actually happened. Let's dive right in.
This is the Juggle is Real podcast. I hope you feel seen, that you realize your worth, lighten your load, and prioritize your own needs. As we hear from leading experts and well-known faces in the wellness, entrepreneurship, education, and motherhood space, I hope you gain insights, proven practices, and learn actionable tools to help you enjoy the juggle of work, family, and everything in between with a little less stress and a lot more ease, joy, and fun. Most of all, I hope you find what you need to simplify, streamline, and supercharge your own journey of better balance and self-love. Are you with me? Let's get started.
Okay, so if you don't know Emma Grede, she is a British entrepreneur. I didn't really know much about her, so I've learned that she's the co-founder of Good American, founding partner of Skims. So, she's got ties with the Kardashians, someone who has built a very high-level career while raising a family. I believe she has 4 children. And recently, just this month, in an interview, she was talking about how she structures her life as a mother who also has a demanding career. And she spoke about being intentional with her time, about working at a very high level, and about being present with her kids in a very strategic and focused way when she's with them. And then there was this one comment in particular that sparked a lot of conversation. And she shared that on the weekends, she might spend about 3 hours a day in direct focus time with her children. So not total time at home, not overall presence, but like intentional and engaged time. But of course, as these things do, that little soundbite, that little detail got pulled out and simplified and basically turned into Emma as the 3 hour mom. And then, of course, from there, things took off, and it was clipped, it was shared, and it's being debated across social media, other podcasts. That's why I'm talking about it here too. But really, what started as this one person describing her life and how she's truly doing the best that she possibly can became such a bigger conversation about what motherhood should look like. And I really do think it's important to acknowledge something that always doesn't get said out loud in conversations like this. Of course, there is a level of privilege in being able to structure your time in this way, like she has. Of course, she has a lot of help, right? And of course, when you do have support and resources and maybe a certain level of flexibility, help, whether that's family or people around you or hired help, or, more money and funds that you can dedicate to things like this. Of course, I don't want to ignore the fact that you can be more intentional with how your time is divided. And that's not a reality for everyone. For most women, for many women, we're working, we're managing our households, we are carrying this mental load, and we don't have the same level of support. So I do think, of course, context matters, and not to dismiss what she said, but I just want to understand and just like throw it out there, not all choices exist in the same conditions. However, I do also want to say that in many cases, we are making decisions not necessarily from the standpoint of being super intentional about our time, about how we're spending the resources and using the supports that we have because of old ideals or ways of thinking that is really like at the heat of this debate. And so I think this is where things get really interesting because the reaction wasn't really about the statement. It was, I think, mostly about how it made people feel and why it has hit such a nerve. Conversations like this and the transparency that she is being so forthright about, it hits identity and it taps into questions like, am I doing enough? Am I present enough as a mom? Am I allowed to want more, or am I allowed to want to do things differently? And what's interesting is that research actually shows that mothers today are spending more time actively engaged with our children than in previous generations while working more. So the expectation hasn't gone down. The expectations have actually expanded. We want to be more present. There's more emotional involvement. There's more career contribution. And we're expected to give more at all angles, at all times, right? And that does create tension because the time and the energy and the attention, I mean, of course, it's finite. And I know, say what you will about the phrase, we've all got 24 hours in a day, but at the end of the day, it is a finite amount, right? But the expectation is often you got to be fully present at home. You got to be fully committed and just killing it at work. And you have to be able to do both without compromise. And of course, the juggle is real was born out of this not being realistic. So when something challenges that, someone who is, a voice and has such a large platform and who has had such success, who also has children, when something challenges that, it really does hit. And so, I mean, I think we have to talk about this double standard because it's worth acknowledging something that does come up a lot in the conversation, that we don't ask men these questions. We don't ask men, how much time are you spending with your kids? Are you present enough when you're at home? Are you doing it right as a dad? And then at the same time, research shows that women still carry the majority of the mental load and the emotional labor and the household coordination. And this is even in dual income households. Again, this is not new to us. People who, if you've been listening, if you have to be hidden under a rock to not know these things. But when a woman speaks openly about structuring her time differently, like it or not, it does feel jarring. And I want to be the most open-minded person and allow people the experience that works best for them. But it did feel jarring when I saw that headline. And so this isn't just about comparison. It really is about how deeply identity is tied to motherhood for women. So I think this is where the conversation really becomes useful. And this is why I decided to record an episode like this, because I'm not one for internet debate or talking about gossiping at all. Like literally, I ain't got no tea, but I do want to talk about this difference between description versus prescription, because there is really a difference between like sharing your life with someone else and describing what works best for you and sharing what is your norm, and also what you are saying others should do and prescribing how other people should live their lives. I mean, this woman Emma was just describing her reality, her structure, her priorities, what she was using and the values behind it. But people heard it as this should be the standard. And when we don't separate those two things, we can internalize someone else's life as a reflection of our own. So we compare ourselves. Oh, it must be nice for her, or like, oh, so that's how am I supposed to do that? Or we question, like, oh, and maybe she doesn't love her children enough, or we second guess, or we just really can judge a lot. But instead, maybe we should be asking, like, okay, so that's cool. That's her. And does this align with me and my life or what I want? And so this is where I really land on it. Like I don't think the number matters. I don't think it's about 3 hours or 8 hours or being home all the time or any of these things, really. I do think it is about alignment, because like you can literally be at home physically present with your children all day. You're in the house with them, but you still feel really disconnected, right? Or you can have a very limited time. And actually, in an interview that Emma Grede did on the Oprah podcast, I heard her say that she only spends about 20 minutes per day with her children. But you could have a limited time and feel deeply, deeply connected because you are fully present for those moments. And so I had a moment just like this past weekend. I was literally home all day. My vehicle has been in repairs forever, and that is for another podcast episode. But I was at home. My husband was running back and forth between hockey tryouts, and my kids were in and out doing their thing. And then I was with my 5-year-old for basically the whole day. We were both in the house all day. I was cleaning, I was tidying, I was just trying to get the house back in order. And he came into the kitchen a few times. He had the little tennis racket that he found in the garage. Our weather is finally starting to warm up. We're finally getting into spring mode. And so he asked me to go play outside and play a game of tennis with him. And so I said a few times, like, okay, bud, I would love to, like, let me just finish this first. Then he came back. I'm like, as soon as the kitchen is clean, then I can come. And I did. I meant it, because it's like, it's so stressful when you have all these things that you want to do. And then it also kills you a little bit when your little guy comes up to you. And so if I'm being honest, like that moment stuck with me, especially as I'm starting to hear all of the conversations about this interview. Because, I was home all day. So one could say I was a 16-hour mom, but was I actually with him the whole time? Was I connected? And so I think that's where this conversation shifts, because it's not just about how much time we have. It's about how we're showing up in that time. And I don't say that with guilt. I say that with awareness, because there's always going to be things to do. And yes, like my kitchen is like one of those constants. Like I'm always cleaning the kitchen. So like really, could I have just like gone outside for half an hour and came back to the freaking kitchen? Yes, probably, But it is those moments, and those are the ones that make you pause and make you think like, okay, so like what actually matters here? And it brings us to sort of this bigger issue that's underneath all of this, is that women are we're building our lives without a clear blueprint, and we're navigating our careers and our motherhood experience, our identity, like how ambitious we are, our presence, our value system, relationships, like all of this all at once. And there is not one right way. And then, even though like there's literally not one certain way, no rules, no blueprint in how to do it properly or perfectly or however, whatever is right and wrong, there's so much noise around us at all times telling us that there is a right and a wrong way. So what do we do with all this? So I think, when it boils down to it, instead of asking like, okay, what side are you on? Do you agree with her? Or like, are you for or against? Are you going to be a 3-hour mom? Or are you like, no, like, I don't agree with that. I think the better question is like, why have I had a reaction to this? Why did this affect me? and what part of this made me feel something. And whatever that something is, it could be positive, it could be more negative. There's a full spectrum. Like, I sort of agree, I see both sides, like whatever it is. What part of it actually made you feel something? Are you resentful because she has the support that she needs to be able to be present for that time, and she then has, time that she spent working and doing self-care and all those things? Or are you feeling angry? Are you feeling frustration? Are you feeling sheer joy and happiness? That's where your answers are, So what matters to you, and what do you want your life to look like? And then I think we have to look at, what trade-offs are you okay with? Because although the expectation is to be fully present in all areas, every single version of motherhood, I'm talking now, I'm talking about generations ago, I'm talking in the future, it does have trade-offs, and you cannot maximize everything at once. But like the best news is that you can choose what matters most. So as we kind of close things out, and we kind of, I kind of try to get like, what is the takeaway here? I think it's, you don't really need to defend someone else's version of motherhood. Let her do her and you do you. But then, like, you don't have to defend it, but you don't need to reject it either. You know what I mean? Like, you just need to understand your own version of your motherhood experience right now. And that can change, with the various seasons, with the ages of your children, with what you're experiencing in your career or what you want out of life. Because the real work is not choosing a side. Like, there's no sides here, it's choosing your life. And it's just feeling grounded in the choices that you're making, and going back to your values and your intentions as you continue to make choices, as you, grapple with what the trade-offs are, and as you decide how you want to move forward. So if this got you thinking, I would love to know what came up for you. I know this has been a hot topic, but like, what resonated? What about it has felt uncomfortable? You can DM me on Instagram at Andryanna G. You can send me an email. There's a link in the podcast notes. And if you are taking away anything from this, I would love for you to share this episode with another mom. Send it to someone who maybe you've been having this conversation and you're like, here is some more perspectives. All of this is great. All of this is important. And I just think I couldn't not sit down and have a conversation about it, because it's just too important. Not the fact that she's doing this, not the fact that, some people are for or against it, but really what lies at this intersection of like our identity and how closely it is tied to our motherhood experience. So I thank you for being here. I appreciate your time and your consideration. Make sure you're following along. Make sure you're subscribed. There's some really good episodes coming up, some amazing guests. We're talking about some really, really incredible topics that are always requested and very popular with listeners like you. So come on back. We will see you next time. And until then, take good care.